just live comfortably in Harlequin world as they are. They have to have something hidden. This is Thrift Store Horror with your excellent hosts, Eleni and Jess.
Party on, Jess.
Party on, Eleni. Hi, folks. My name is Jess Townsend, thrift store book curator and paperback fanatic.
And I'm her partner in crime and fellow book fanatic, Eleni McKnight. Welcome to Thrift Store Horror, the podcast about teen paperback horror books.
With all the nostalgic vintage horror you've come to remember from the 90s. Or have you forgot? Today we are not really very organized. We're just kind of looking at how does life imitate art? And can you say that art imitated life when you're looking through some of these older paperback horror stories?
Yeah, and looking at some of the socio-political events that were happening when some of these books were being written, definitely.
And could they be reproduced today? Or would that be too controversial? What do you think it is about the horror genre that drew in certain types of people, especially like in the 80s and 90s? What do you think it was that drew them in?
Well, to me, personally, I just find I find being scared a little bit kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like to watch horror movies sometimes. Some of the gross out stuff like gore, that's that's a little hard for me to watch, but once in a while I can do it. But I really wanted to read Fear Street and Christopher Pike because my sister is 4 years older than me. She and all of her friends, they were reading, more mature books, the chapter books, the series books, and I loved going to Williams Booksellers here in Murfreesboro, and I love to just go to the paperback novel section for teens and kids, and I found, at first it was Babysitter's Club, and then I kind of graduated up to Sweet Valley High and Fear Street. But it was so interesting, so I'd see the back of the book cover, and I would just memorize the back, and it was so exciting. And I think part of it is there's so many unknowns in childhood and growing up and becoming a teenager, an adult, is a very scary process. Mm-hmm. It's, there's so much you want to do, but there's so much you don't know how to do.
Right.
Yeah, so, the horror and the fear. Yeah, because horror is basically like, what's the absolute worst thing that could happen to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's a lot of what you think about when you're a kid and a teenager, like, what kind of adult do I want to grow up to be? And the idea of not being successful in life or not reaching your goals, that is a really scary thing, I think, for a lot of kids.
I know that I discovered most of the books that I read through my brother's book collection. There's even pictures of me as a baby going through his book collection.
Oh.
So he read a lot of the Madeline L'Engle books.
Yes.
Which I could never get into. I could not get into those stories.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But then he showed up with some Christopher Pike. Yes. Which I would steal. Mm-hmm. And I just found those books fascinating because Pike would create these worlds that were realistic enough that you could picture yourself living in them easily.
Exactly.
These are your friends. These are the people that you associate with. But they were titillating enough that you're like 12, 13 years old and going, I don't know what specifically they're talking about here, but this sounds like a good time. That's me. That was me.
Yeah.
It's a line in Monster where she actually says to somebody, I may have lost my virginity last night. Well, did you or didn't you? I mean, the book didn't describe it enough to make it obvious, totally obvious to the reader, but you could see that some stuff had happened.
You're right. Yeah.
But for me, when I was thinking about what goes into the mindset or the preferences of someone who reads horror primarily when they're young, when they're older, whatever. And this book does not shy away from anything. And it starts out, if you can get through the first few pages of this book, you know you're hooked on horror.
Yeah.
When she saw the shotgun, she couldn't think of anything to add to her greeting. Her eyes followed only the gun. She watched with great interest as Mary raised the weapon and pointed it at Todd Green's midsection. Mary shot Todd directly in the belly. The blast went right through his guts and painted the wall behind him a lumpy red.
Lord, yeah.
And then it goes on, and she blows the head off of the blonde cheerleader.
Oh, God.
And I remember the first time I read this just going, whoa. But I had to finish it. Because, I mean, she had a reason for doing what she did. She had a valid reason for doing what she did. I mean, to me, if you can read that, the first few pages of Monster, and still enjoy it enough to continue on further, I think you know what genre you appreciate, because that is
definitely. That is, yeah.
Yeah. And that book right there,
blood's painting the wall behind them. God.
Yeah. That book would never be. Well, probably some of his books are being reprinted in anthologies and whatnot. That one will probably never be reprinted. There's too many questionable scenes. And the gun violence. The gun violence is insane.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, that was all pre-Columbine, too.
Oh, this is way before that. Yeah.
So that was just fantasy, really, that kind of stuff could happen. But now we're living it. Like every month, it seems like we're hearing about one or two mass shootings, and it's like, yeah, we don't want to romanticize that in any way.
I don't feel like it was romanticized. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
That opening scene, you just think about what if I'd been there? And I mean, the reason she did it was because, she figured out that these people had been taken over by these alien things. They were out there killing people and eating them. And I have to stop them. Okay, well, maybe stop them someplace other than a party where you're doing it in front of everybody.
Right.
I mean, and then she goes on and tries to kill the guy that's been her boyfriend because he's one of them too. And that book, I swear, it's so good. Her best friend is out there investigating what the situation, trying to prove her friend is not innocent. She's not crazy. Let me see if I can prove that she's not crazy. And she just gets sucked in by this guy who is now her best friend's ex-boyfriend. Because once you shoot somebody, they tend to not want to date you anymore. Right. And the whole being in jail thing, that kind of added an extra layer of complication. But he's like such a stud. And all of a sudden, he's interested in her. But as she goes through it, she winds up becoming just like these monsters. And, she manages to take them all out, but she still becomes one by the end of the story. And I want a sequel. I want a sequel of a little girl flying around as this horrible creature who, randomly attacks animals because people are not for eating. That's like the last line of the book. People.
I love it. People are not for eating. No,
people are not. We don't eat people. We might eat our pets.
Yes.
But But we do. Sorry, I'm not gonna. Actually eat you.
We're not gonna eat you, Freya. Nobody's gonna eat on you.
No, nobody's gonna eat any kitties. So.
No kitty.
What is the first horror book that you can remember reading?
First horror, like teen horror, would probably be The Stepsister.
Okay.
From the Fear Street. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was my first Fear Street book too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very first horror book I remember reading when I was really little was Wait Till Helen Comes.
Oh, that looks spooky.
Have you never read this?
No.
It was terrifying when I was young and I read that.
Oh,
this little ghost girl tries to lead this other little girl into basically killing herself. And she's playing off like I'm your friend. You need to come and be with me forever, and that would involve drowning herself. And I mean, it was terrifying.
It sounds terrifying. Definitely.
Yeah. But then my brother got an audio tape version of Fall into Darkness.
Yes. I was also thinking about who wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Lois Duncan.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But Fall into Darkness, I was so fascinated by that story. Yeah. And it kind of veered away from anything supernatural. This was all just human choices, bad choices, misunderstandings. I mean, it was all driven by fear and misunderstanding.
Yes.
And I think that when you cut out the supernatural element, those were almost more frightening because this totally could have happened.
Right.
I mean, Fall into Darkness, basically, this rich girl decides to fake her death because she blames her best friend for her brother's suicide a year earlier. Has no reason to assume it had anything to do with her best friend. Should not have made that assumption. It made no sense for her to make that assumption. But she needed somebody to blame. I get it.
Right.
She needed a villain.
Right.
She has this brilliant idea to go jump off a cliff. A high cliff.
Yeah, and she kind of, like, faked. Yeah, she had, like, a bungee cord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she knew nothing about what was going to happen when she jumped off with that damn bungee cord. Because instead of being able to just carefully climb down like she expected to, she slams into the side of the cliff and then just hangs there, hurt, with a broken arm. And she's trapped. She's like, no, I still want my plan to go through, man. I gotta get off this rope. Mm-hmm. And so she lets herself be cut down, falls into the river, one arm broken, and manages to make it, out of the river, and is later killed by another person who knew what she was doing in the first place. Mm-hmm. But it's like, who the fuck does that?
Yeah, that's going pretty far, man.
That is. I could understand wanting to punish someone for an idea that you have in your head of something that they did, whether they did it or not. I mean, I don't personally believe in revenge because, like I've told you before, I'm too scared of what will fall back on me.
Oh, yeah.
I could think of easier ways to go about getting what she wanted. I mean...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she was a rich girl, so she obviously had the money, She could have
hired a hitman.
Right. That would have been perfect, Jax. There's so many stories about, like, murdering other people just because you're mad about something. Like, what was the Texas cheerleader murders? I remember that movie on HBO. Yeah, it was like a mom got so mad that, like, her daughter couldn't be on the cheerleading squad at her middle school that she started talking about hiring a hitman to take out that girl.
Okay, unpopular opinion.
What?
I've seen quite a few documentaries that covered that case. Her daughter got screwed over.
Yeah.
What was happening in those cases of her not making the squad was severely unfair.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The other girl, whose mother, cheerleader mom, was going to have killed, the other girl was being given these advantages that were just completely, I mean, it's like Mrs. Green all over again. I mean, it should not have been happening.
Right.
It was hypocritical. It was unfair. And she may have been more talented. I don't know. But when you've got a child who's already attending the school where the squad is, going out for cheerleading, thinking she's going to be okay because this girl who's been beating her out for years now is going to another school. All of a sudden, she decides she's going to transfer to that school. And before she has even attended, they let her try out for cheerleading. And she beats the little girl out.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying a hitman should have been involved.
Nope.
I think that's definitely going too far. But I can absolutely understand both the parental outrage of it, but also the teens. I mean, that's just devastating.
Jeez, it would be. God, yeah. I didn't make color guard my freshman year, and my sister was the flipping captain the year before, so I was humiliated. Yeah, I know that sounds so silly now, but I really, really was. Like, I remember I didn't want to go to school the next day, and my parents forced me to. And I cried the whole time.
Yeah. I actually did try out. Well, I thought I was going to try out for 8th grade cheerleading.
It's scary to try out for cheerleader. It really is.
Thankfully, I figured out on my own after going through a weekend workshop that I did not have the chops whatsoever. I could not learn the dance moves.
Yeah.
I could not learn the dance. I could not do the jumps. I didn't know why. I could do a herky, but damn it, getting up there.
The spread eagle.
Yeah, that I couldn't do it. I don't know why. And I mean, I was teeny. I was like 4'8" back then. So I mean, I would have been a perfect, perfect pro.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, after 2 days of this, I am thoroughly humiliated. I am not going to audition and make it worse.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted it bad, but looking back, it's like, why?
Yeah.
What about it?
I've known some women over the years who told me about how catty some of those, organizations can be, and how difficult the drama and the gossip can be. And I'll be honest, like, in my color guard, I just remember a lot of drama and a lot of gossip and a lot of bullying. Yeah. So, yeah.
Did you reread the first cheerleader book recently?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
But you remember the story pretty well.
I do.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When I reread the first cheerleader book, I got so pissed off in a different way from the previous times that I've read it. Who is the real villain in the whole cheerleader Sarah Fear released from her grave saga here? Who is the real villain here? It's Mrs. fucking Green, the cheerleader advisor.
Right. Because she pushed them so hard. Yeah. And then she took one of the girls off the squad to make room.
Yeah, these two girls show up. And she's like, well, you're a freshman, so you have plenty of time, and you're the alternate now. Who started all of the trouble? Mrs. Green. Yes. She's the villain of Shadyside, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. I'm going to say that it probably would have been fair to probably put Bobby, the older sister, in on the squad, and then make Corky the alternates for the year until they had tryouts in the spring and they could rearrange shit.
I think that definitely would have cut down on some of the animosity, and the animosity is what drove 90% of what happened.
So true.
In that first book, because you have Kimmy, who thinks that she's going to become the captain of the squad after Jennifer is hurt and crippled when they have that bus accident. What does Mrs. Green do? She makes Bobby, who has been on the squad maybe 3 weeks tops.
She has not proved her loyalty to the team. She's not shown dedication. She's not made sacrifices. Kimmy did all that.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't. She might have learned all the cheers, possibly, but that doesn't mean like she deserved it.
Well, I mean, why would you even assume that a squad that questioned whether or not it was fair for her and her sister to be there in the first place, why would you assume that they would follow her leadership?
Okay, well, I have to say this. I'm sorry, but R.L. Stine, obviously a guy. He's never been on a cheerleading squad, I'm sure. I'd be surprised if he had been. So he probably doesn't know how the dynamics typically work in female-centric sports, like cheerleading. Because I was in the Color Guard in high school. I thought I was so cool. God. But yeah, I don't think it would have gone. I mean, band director would not have allowed somebody who had only been on the flag line for like a few weeks to take over as captain and leader, because they didn't know the whole squad. They didn't know how things worked. They're still learning. Yeah, there's a bit of a learning curve. So like, maybe that might happen in football, but I'm also wondering if R.L. Stine was thinking that this is how women's sports are different, that they would do something like that, like who's the best gets to be the captain. No.
I don't know, but I mean, at that point, had she even really proven herself as the best?
Right.
I mean, that's a very short period of time, simply going, well, they were on ESPN in their old squad, okay, you go on the team, you're going to be captain now. I mean, good Lord, she was just asking for conflict. Yeah. And I mean, he got that part of it right. How the girls reacted.
Yeah.
Everything. It's dead on. Even the possibility of straight up murder. Because, I mean, when you get caught up in something that is like the most important thing to you, and then you get so seriously slighted, and you have no recourse, and it just gets worse and worse. I felt for Kimmy. I used to hate her when I was young, but I felt for her because it was like you could feel it come rolling off of her. She's like, I'm not as pretty as these other girls. I'm not as thin as these other girls. I'm not, as popular as these other girls. But she had to fixate on Bobby because, Bobby came into that world and it was like, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, and Kimmy had done all that work.
Yeah.
Yeah, she lost to Bobby within like a few weeks.
Yeah, and that scene in the auditorium where they've got their new uniforms on, all of a sudden they go from being the Shadyside Tigers wearing orange and black to the Shadyside Tigers wearing gray and red. I don't completely understand how that works, but I'm fine with it. Whatever. She's in the auditorium.
Ghost Rider. I'm going to say it.
She's in the auditorium, and she is like listening to the announcements by the principal and how brave the cheerleaders were for surviving that horrific bus crash, except for the one person who, fell on Sarah Fear's grave and was paralyzed.
Jennifer.
Yeah. And she's over there reading, she's shedding tears for her friend Jennifer because she's so brave. And look at her, she's so positive still. And I'm so excited, and I know I'm going to be captain. And she's getting ready to take a step forward because Bobby.
God. Yeah.
I don't even want to think about how embarrassing and painful that had to be, because it's not like everybody didn't know.
Yeah.
That it should have been her.
Oh God, yeah.
It's amazing what some people are willing to sacrifice if they think that they're going to get ahead. Like, I personally would not want to get ahead in a scenario where everyone around me hated me. Bobby, no
I think
Bobby, she died.
Bobby was just trying to have a good time and be a cheerleader and do what she loved. But yeah, she was really set up by Mrs. Green.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that she even cared whether or not she was going to be captain. Bobby, I'm sorry.
In the middle of her senior year. Jeez.
She's at a new school. She doesn't know these people. But I don't think that being captain mattered to her the way that it did Kimmy. And anybody with any sort of class, now granted, that's asking a lot of a teenager, they would have been like, I don't see this as the best situation.
Right. Yeah.
I don't see this working. I mean, personally, I just would not want, I wouldn't want to be in her position knowing that everybody thinks it should have been this person. Okay, well then it should be that person, because I don't want to deal with this. I just want to get through school. I want to have fun. I want to, not be taken over by some evil spirit.
Yeah.
I have bigger things to worry about here.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking about when Kanye West interrupted Taylor Swift's acceptance speech at the MTV Music Awards, was it?
Yeah.
And he's like, Beyonce did the best video of all time. And she's
really happy for you. I'm going to let you finish.
Cry. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And then, Beyonce was so classy and got up and said, Taylor, I'm going to let you finish your speech, when she won her award later that night. Yeah. And I kind of wish, it would have been nice if Corky had the wherewithal, or Bobby had the wherewithal to say something like that and say, I'm going to step down. I'm not going to accept this. I don't know this squad as well as Kimmy does. And she's worked hardest. Yeah.
Now, again, that's asking a lot.
That's asking a lot of a teenager. Yeah, yeah.
She was excited. She, maybe felt like there could have been a part of her that thought, well, this is what the squad wants. Otherwise, Miss Green would not be putting me in this position. But
I'm sure she thought that. Yeah. She trusted Mrs. Green. Yeah.
Clearly, that was a very bad idea. When you go through the entire cheerleader saga, she is so completely just unaware. But everything that happened in terms of releasing Sarah Fear from her grave can be traced back and pinned on Mrs. Green. Hell, Mrs. Green didn't even ride the bus that night. She drove in a different vehicle.
Oh,
she wasn't even there.
Yeah, because we always had a band director or another parent or somebody else in the staff riding with us on the school bus when we were going to football games, away games. And I think about it in the color guard. Yeah.
No, it was just the driver.
Right.
And while there were some cheerleaders standing up in the bus in the pouring rain, because he can't see very well through the windshield of the bus, it's fogged up. He opens the door. So then when they crash, of course, Jennifer goes flying out the door.
Right.
And crash lands on Sarah Fear's grave, which that's another one I don't understand. I'm sure there was plenty. Huh?
I wonder if the bus rolled.
It did, because they were upside down.
That's right. Yeah, they were upside down. Jennifer got ejected out the bus.
Yeah. But one thing that bothers me is I'm sure there have been plenty of people who have stepped on Sarah Fear's grave between the time that she was buried and the time that Jennifer face planted on it. Now, was it just
Jennifer died on top of the grave, and that's what was different. Yeah,
that had to have been it. But I mean, it just seems so weird if you're going to reanimate, to take over this dead cheerleader body and then pretend that you're paralyzed.
Right.
I mean, the girl wasn't even paralyzed. She could get up and move around. But I don't know. I think that a lot of the troubles in Fear Street, you can definitely lay at the feet of Mrs. Green.
At least in the cheerleader, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how far her influence stretched. You know, for all we know.
Yep.
Anything to do with the drama department. There were quite a few books about the drama department.
Oh, yeah. But and it's interesting to look back on this like 25 years later, you know, and see like how I've grown up and matured in my points of view on things. And now there are things in the series that like I would not be okay with that happening to me, or if I had a child, I would not be okay with certain things. Like the whole thing with Mrs. Green naming Bobby as the captain. I would have been like, hold on, you know, aren't they a part of like like there was the Universal Cheer Association and the World Cheer Association. Like I know our school had that with our cheerleaders, and I really think that like that's the thing is like organizations like that help with setting up fairness in these kinds of high school organizations.
Yeah, we don't know how
the story though.
we don't know how well known the Shadyside team really was, and let's be honest, in these tiny little towns, the rules don't really always seem to apply, and because who the hell's gonna know him?
Right.
But no, I definitely agree that somebody should have been adult enough to step in and say, this is going to cause problems.
Right,
and
right.
It does. And then Bobby gets blamed for all of the problems, even though they had nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
Bless her.
Right.
You do feel bad for her at that point, but all of this could have been avoided here.
Well, honestly, I feel like it needed like a committee to decide what was right because of adults like didn't have like a dog in this fight, you know, didn't like I remember reading the bylaws of the cheerleader tryout system when I was in high school, and like the coach was there, but so was like 2 or 3 people who had nothing to do with the school at all that were members of the Universal Cheer Association, and they would be the judges, so they could outrank the coach by herself, so it wasn't political. Yeah, so that made it a lot more fair. So, like for tryouts and stuff, so I would think like they would have said something if they had had a committee like that overseeing the cheerleaders. Yeah,
and I mean that's when you talked about the Texas cheerleader mom. That was a big part of the story that bothered me, is because they did have rules. But they were constantly bending or breaking those rules.
Yes.
Because the other mom was more persuasive or
had more money or whatever.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But like I said, the little girl could have been incredible. Yeah. She could have been. Yeah. She could have been. The other little girl whose mom took out the hit, maybe she was horrible. From what I've heard, she was not. She was not. She just did not always measure up to the other girl, but her moments were taken from her. And then once her mom is put in jail, she's too embarrassed, so she gets doubly screwed.
Yeah, that's so sad for her.
I feel for her as an individual.
Too. Yeah,
and I mean, I feel, to be honest with you, I would not under any circumstances do what Texas cheerleader mom did. But I can definitely understand the outrage. However, this is also where, as a parent, you should learn to step back and understand that you are not in control of the world that your child occupies. Right. You should not try to insert yourself into it. It seems like there are a lot of parents who did not get to live out their dreams, and so they push their kids to do it.
Yep.
And then their kids may not even want to be involved in this sport or this activity, but they're being pushed to do it so that the parent can feel like, I have finally achieved what I wanted. No.
Right.
No.
Right, yeah.
That trophy doesn't have your name on it.
Right.
No.
Yeah, I can definitely see why when I was a kid and I read the cheerleaders, I thought it was okay and normal and good that Bobby was handed the captain position.
Bobby's the protagonist, so you want
her to win. But
exactly. Yeah. That's the way it's written. You want And then of course she dies halfway through, and it's like, well, who am I supposed to follow now? But no, looking back on it with, you know, I guess the eyes of an adult, because it's so strange rereading these books at 40. I'll just be honest here.
Like, I remember as a teenager thinking, I have to, when I was 13, I was like, I have to be in the color guard. I have to make captain my senior year. I have to, you know, make it through choir and get into chamber choir. And then I have to be in drama and, you know, all this stuff. If I want to be that professional actress I dream of being. Mm-hmm. And I had all of these plot points in my life that I wanted to achieve, and I didn't, you know. But I kind of realized, like, sometimes that pressure of, like, I really have to get this position. Like, maybe that's why Bobby took it.
Well, and when you're that age, you don't understand that some of what is being put on you and expected of you, and some of what you desire and you feel like these are my goals. You don't understand that maybe these goals are not that critical.
Yeah.
But B, also not that easily attainable.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I did not have the abilities to be a cheerleader. I did not do any dance before trying out. I'd never done gymnastics. These were girls that had been preparing themselves probably since they were about 3.
Yeah.
You know, so for me to have been butthurt because I sucked, and they didn't put me on the squad, that would have been absolutely ridiculous. And I knew that even back then, which is, slightly impressive for a 13.
It is. I'll say it. Yeah.
But I didn't want to make a fool of myself. And I mean, I knew that I would. But how much of what we had placed on us as we were growing up, how much of it was even attainable?
Right. Well, I thought that I could attain all those things. And I thought that I had a real chance at becoming a professional actress back then and doing musicals and, being a star. But life...
That's a lot, though.
It is.
I mean, that's...
And then you look at some people who are really famous and they don't really have... Like, they didn't hit all those benchmarks in high school, you know.
Some of them haven't even gone to high school, for crying out loud.
Right.
But,
like Britney Spears, she didn't graduate high school.
But they know somebody, or they've been handed an opportunity.
Or they had a parent really, like, pushing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole concept of being discovered is like the biggest lie out there.
Yeah, when I was auditioning for talent agencies, I started to learn that, like, nobody you see on camera in, like, film and television is there by accident. Mm-hmm. They worked at it. It was a deliberate choice.
When I was when I went and did that one episode of Nashville as an extra in the background, I found out something that I'd never I'd never had reason to know this before, but hanging out and talking to some of the other extras. Some of them were there and they had agents, and those agents had made sure that these specific extra roles, they were put in prominent places to be seen specifically.
The featured extras,
Yes. Mm-hmm. But you had to have an agent who pulled for you. Yeah, they got put in a prominent spot. You watch the show, you can't see my ass because there were too many tall people around.
Yeah.
Okay?
I was an extra in, like, the crowd scenes and stuff on Nashville, and I did a few other things, but, like, I didn't get paid more than, like, $8 an hour for all that work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was in that Kid Rock music video. You can actually see me in that video.
What the hell?
God.
I don't know how many people I've shared that with now.
Yeah, well.
Did you donate that money to something he doesn't support?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I would love to get out there and do more auditions to be an extra, but I mean, I would have to go into it with the mindset of an adult, where it's like nobody's going to discover me.
Right.
This is just for fun and a little bit of money.
When I was doing extra work in Nashville, it was right about the age I realized, like, dude, I'm about to be completely old in the industry, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to be discovered. It's a long shot, so why keep pursuing this? And that's what basically drove me to go back to school. So
if it's something that you enjoy and you get pleasure out of doing,
right,
you keep doing it. Don't even worry about how far you're going to advance because of it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like 2 hours later.
Maybe don't expect to come to a new town, go out for cheerleader, and assume
mid-season
because you're such hot shit from somewhere else that you should be there and someone else should be kicked off.
I kind of wish the accident with Jennifer had happened after the Corcoran girls were told you can't audition. There's no spot for you on the squad. Mm-hmm. If Jennifer had died after, or fallen on Sarah Fear's grave after that, the accident happened, and then they said, "Oh, we need a new cheerleader." Then let them audition.
Also, why did Sarah Fear latch on to Bobby? What specifically prompted that? I mean, she's possessed Jennifer. Jennifer liked Bobby. Jennifer didn't have any problems with Bobby. So why did she suddenly become a target? But I mean, that's something that's never really explained, is what specifically makes the Corcoran sisters targets. The way that they...
That's a very good point, yeah.
And I don't know if it's because they were just new to Fear Street and the Shadyside area. After Corky manages to get the spirit back into Sarah Fear's grave,
yeah,
I can understand the spirit being like, there's the person that I need to take out if I want to be successful next time.
Yeah, like if there was was it a bloodline that had left Shadyside area and come back? We don't know.
Nope. There was never any interesting connection made, unless there was one made in the 5th cheerleader book that I have not read yet. But as far as I know, there was never a connection made.
Horror and gore for, just for fun, almost, like in the first book.
The whole cheerleader trilogy, which is what it started out as, it had to have been just for fun, like an experiment for fun, because it just, you hear people talk about that little trilogy in the whole Fear Street universe.
Right.
And it's talked about almost like it's its own completely separate thing. And that's how it feels. It's like, here's an alternate reality of Shadyside where the dead are coming back to life and they're possessing people and they're, controlling things they should have no control over, like the heat in the shower.
Right, right.
When for the most part, when you're going through the Fear Street books, especially the early ones, it's all human. But here's the thing about Shadyside that drives me crazy.
What?
There have to have been at least 50 possible serial killers in Shadyside.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, but it's always like...
eyebrows.
It's always
like Gary Mayne in the It book, Like, everybody pretended it's not there. Nobody studied it. Nobody said, what's in the water? Like, come on.
Everybody still manages to be surprised that there's somebody...
Oh my God, a teenager was murdered.
In our sleepy little town? Your sleepy little town where you have a street called Fear Street and there's a killer there every 5 minutes? Why are you surprised by this at this point? I mean, it's I don't know. I get it. It takes the fun away if you have the characters being that aware. It's like, oh, here's another one. Didn't we handle this last month?
Yeah, exactly. Like, Shadyside police, get it together.
Shadyside, please. Please.
Yeah.
FBI
FBI should be called.
But Stein, one thing that I definitely noticed the big differences between Stein and Pike is that with Stein, it was almost always knife violence for one thing.
Yeah.
Very rarely, and at least in the books that I've read so far, I was starting to think it just never happened, and then I read Missing. It's like, oh, okay, there are guns in Fear Street. Okay.
Right.
But very rarely is there gun violence. It's always somebody picks up a knife, or somebody gets pushed off something, and then their legs are twisted at unnatural angles when they, or their head hit the ground with a sickening thud. I love the descriptions because they're always the same. But his books, there's very little gun violence. Mm-hmm. The stories, again, are tiptoeing around what's possible, what's realistic, and then what's towing the line of the supernatural. It isn't until you really get into the cheerleader books that he goes full-blown supernatural.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I will say this. I want a t-shirt that says, "Leave Sookie alone."
Yes.
Sookie Thomas. The only Fear Street name aside from Corky and Bobby Corcoran that I really remembered, that after years of not reading these books, Sookie Thomas is in so many Fear Street books. She's this hardcore returning character who every guy cheats on their girlfriend with.
Yeah, she's kind of an NPC of Fear Street,
She deserved her own book. The amount of documentation and discussion of Sookie Thomas.
She is sex slave, God, or a supposed sex slave.
I don't think she was sleeping with anybody. I don't
either. I think they were just. She's that girl that got pegged as a slut, and everybody hated her. And she kind of. I bet she lived up to that after all the abuse she probably endured from everybody at school. She's like, "Fuck, you guys think I'm a slut? I'm going to go ahead and be one."
You want a slut, babe? I'll give you a slut. Yeah, I feel you on that. But, for the most part, it was just she was this target so that people didn't have to be upset with the men in Fear Street. It was never their fault. It was always because Sookie...
stole them away.
She just couldn't keep her clothes on. And
supposedly, I don't know.
And she always had crazy hairstyles and thick black eyeliner, and of course that makes her.
That's the bad girl prototype of the 80s,
But the level of slut shaming in the Fear Street books, where Sookie is concerned, is upsetting.
Yeah.
Now, do I think that if I had lived in Shadyside, I would have liked or trusted Sookie? I don't know, because I haven't gotten to know her on a personal level.
Yeah,
I only know
from her book.
I only know that she is, in this book, sneaking around with this person. In this book, suspected of sneaking around with this person. And she's never even, bitchy. She's always, sweet as pie to everybody.
Right.
And it kind of makes me wonder, was Sookie just a knockout beauty that the other girls in Shadyside didn't feel they could live up to? And so,
that's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
But bless her heart, she couldn't keep relationships going, but that's not necessarily her fault.
Yeah.
We don't know. I would like to know more about Sookie, and sadly, Fear Street did not give us that.
Yep.
She's just the scapegoat. She is,
Leave Sookie alone. Yeah.
Seriously, leave her the fuck alone. Either give her own book,
right?
Learn about her past. What house on Fear Street does she live in?
Right.
Something.
What's her history?
Exactly.
Are her parents still together? Yeah.
Yeah. What made her into the supposed Shadyside slut? How did that happen? I would love to know these things.
Yeah, was she the girl always going to Goodwill for her clothes because her parents had separated, and that's why she...
Or maybe she was just ridiculously fashionable.
Right, like high fashion, like New York City. So,
well, I mean, in the 90s, if you were not going to Goodwill, or not Goodwill back then, but if you weren't going to the Salvation Army to look for half your wardrobe, there was something wrong with you. I have found stuff in thrift stores that you would never know.
Yes.
Ever.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're really good at it, you're patient, and you hunt, you can find some serious freaking gems.
Oh, true story. Yeah.
I mean, I love thrift store shopping. It's one of my favorite things to do, not just because I'm hunting for books, but...
And I know so many people, at least online, that love to find hidden gems in thrift stores with a little bit of work, they can make it into something really neat and pretty and very individual.
Yeah.
Very good fashion sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you have a sense for it, you can turn a trash bag into a stock.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you know how to sell it, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. You are the most stylish one in the room.
Right.
But you have to have that confidence to sell it.
So true. Yeah. So maybe that was Suki.
I don't know. Again, we don't know. We don't know. Were her parents well off? Did she live in the hills of Shadyside, or did she live on Fear Street?
Right.
Or if someone lived on Fear Street, are we automatically supposed to assume that they were poor? Because the Corcorans did not seem poor, and they lived on Fear Street.
Right.
But in other cases, it was like all they could afford is this rundown property on Fear Street. Okay, well, we're going to leave it for now. I think that we've covered enough random topics. On our next episode, I think we'll start talking about the Fear Street series. And
yes.
I think we're going to try to cover them in order. So possibly going to touch on at least the first 3 in the next episode.
Right. So that would be the New Girl, the Surprise Party, and the Overnight.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. I think you can find those on Kindle Unlimited. Yeah. So you can read those if you want to listen to it and know what we're talking about. So if you've forgotten.
And one of the things that I'm curious about and would like to discuss is, do we feel like R.L. Stine knew from the beginning where the series was going to go? And also, I would like to begin my campaign for everyone to leave Sookie Thomas alone.
Amen. Yes.
She has been through enough, and yet we never got a book to tell us.
Yes, her story.
Everything she's been through.
Terrible.
Bless her heart.
Can you tell we're Southern? Yeah. So, gosh.
Hopefully you'll listen to our thoughts on Sookie. There are people who literally hate Sookie.
Yeah.
We were never given Sookie's perspective on things.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, but just because you dress a little punk rock, that does not make you
a bad person. No, it does not. Yeah.
It's something that we are definitely going to discuss as we go through these books, is whether or not Sookie actually deserves the reputation that she's been given. Because I personally,
yeah, I feel like it's really unfair.
I don't agree. I don't.
Right.
If you learn nothing else from our podcast,
yes,
walk away with this. Leave Sookie alone.